Bernie Sanders slams 8 Democrats for very bad vote on government funding bill. Washington, D.C. Senator Bernie Sanders has strongly criticized 8 Senate Democrats who joined Republicans to pass a key procedural vote on the government's continuing resolution, CR, calling it a very, very bad vote that hurts working families and benefits the wealthy. The continuing resolution, a temporary spending measure to reopen the government after the longest shutdown in U.S. history, has sparked a major political debate within the Democratic Party. While moderates view it as a necessary compromise, progressives, led by Sanders, believe it sacrifices health care protections and working-class interests for short-term political gain. Background: the shutdown and the continuing resolution. The U.S. government recently endured its longest shutdown ever, lasting 41 days. The shutdown stemmed from a bitter stalemate between Democrats and Republicans over how to fund federal agencies and extend key social programs, including Veterans Affairs, military construction, agriculture, and health care subsidies under the Affordable Care Act (ACA). Late Sunday, the Senate advanced a bipartisan, stopgap, funding bill, known as a continuing resolution, to keep the government open until January 2026. The measure is designed to prevent another shutdown while buying lawmakers time to negotiate a long-term funding package. The procedural vote passed 60-40, with 8 Democrats and 1 independent who caucuses with them siding with Republicans. Their decision ignited fury from progressives, who accuse them of helping push through a deal that weakens social safety net programs and raises health care costs for millions. Sanders' reaction: a very, very bad vote. Speaking to reporters and in a statement on the Senate floor, Sanders denounced the deal as a very, very bad vote that will hurt working families all across this country. According to Sanders, the bill would raise health insurance premiums for more than 20 million Americans, in some cases, doubling or even tripling them. It could result in 15 million people losing Medicaid coverage. He warned the policy could lead to tens of thousands of preventable deaths every year due to loss of coverage. Sanders accused lawmakers of giving massive tax breaks to billionaires and large corporations while asking working families to pay more. This is not what standing up for the working class looks like, Sanders said. This is not what fighting Trumpism means. This is surrendering to it. The senator from Vermont, a longtime progressive voice in Congress, framed the vote as a moral failure. When 15 million Americans could lose their health care, and 50,000 could die unnecessarily, that's not fiscal responsibility, that's cruelty, he said. Who voted with Republicans? The 8 Democrats and 1 independent who supported the Republican-backed procedural motion were Jeanne Shaheen DNH, John Fetterman DPA, Tim Kaine DVA, Catherine Cortez Masto DNV, Dick Durbin DIL, Maggie Hassan DNH, Jackie Rosen DNV, Angus King IME, John Tester DMT. Their votes provided the crucial margin needed to move the resolution forward and reopen the government. Progressives quickly accused them of betraying party principles. Social media activists labeled them the Shutdown Nine, arguing that their decision undermined efforts to defend health care programs and progressive economic policies. What's in the continuing resolution? The continuing resolution funds the government temporarily and includes the following measures: federal funding for Veterans Affairs, agriculture, nutrition assistance, and military construction through early 2026. A commitment to hold a future Senate vote on extending ACA premium subsidies. Short-term relief for furloughed federal workers, allowing back pay and resumption of basic services. However, the deal does not guarantee that the ACA subsidies, which help millions afford insurance through healthcare.gov, will actually be renewed. Progressives say this uncertainty means working families could face steep premium hikes once the temporary funding expires. Sanders and his allies also note that the bill's offsets and spending caps could force future cuts to Medicaid and social programs, describing it as a time bomb, set to explode later. Why progressives are angry? To Sanders and other progressives, the vote represents a fundamental betrayal of democratic values. Health care access. The bill risks rolling back ACA subsidies and potentially removing 15 million Americans from Medicaid. Sanders argues that losing coverage for so many is not an act of governance, it's an act of neglect. Economic inequality. The Vermont senator says the deal prioritizes corporate interests and the wealthy. While billionaires get new loopholes, working families get higher premiums, he said. Party division. Progressives see the 8 Democrats' votes as evidence that the party's moderate wing is too willing to compromise with Republicans, undermining the momentum for a stronger social welfare agenda. Political optics. With the 2026 midterm elections approaching, Many Democrats worry the vote could alienate working-class voters who already feel betrayed by Washington. Why some Democrats supported the vote? The senators who backed the resolution argue that they did so to end the shutdown, not to endorse every part of the Republican plan. Senator Tim Kaine, DVA, said his vote was about protecting federal workers in his state. My priority was reopening the government and ensuring that thousands of Virginians who rely on federal paychecks could return to work. This deal guarantees a vote on ACA premium credits, something we can win if we stay united. Senator Jeanne Shaheen echoed this, saying, "No one wanted this shutdown to continue. The continuing resolution is not perfect, but it prevents further harm to our economy and to families who were already suffering." Moderates also insist the deal gives Democrats future leverage to pass longer-term funding bills that include Democratic priorities. They argue that a continued shutdown would have worsened conditions for millions of Americans, including veterans and food assistance recipients. But Sanders rejects that logic, saying, "You don't help working people by giving in to the very forces trying to destroy the social safety net." Policy implications of the vote. Rising health care costs. Without guaranteed ACA subsidies, insurance premiums could soar nationwide. Analysts estimate increases between 30% and 60% for middle-income families if Congress fails to act by next year. Medicaid cuts. The resolution's spending caps and policy language open the door to trimming Medicaid enrollment. Sanders' office warned that up to 15 million Americans could lose coverage. Federal programs at risk. While the CR restores funding for now, future negotiations could target programs like WIC, SNAP, and Veterans Health Services for reductions. Tax policy tilt. The deal extends certain business tax provisions and maintains Trump-era tax breaks. Progressive lawmakers say this reinforces inequality, political fallout and party divisions. The vote has deepened rifts within the Democratic Party. Sanders' comments reflect growing frustration among progressives who feel sidelined by moderates willing to compromise with Republicans. Progressive activists have vowed to challenge some of the 8 senators in upcoming primaries, accusing them of selling out to corporate donors. Meanwhile, Democratic leadership has remained largely silent, focusing on passing the bill to stabilize the government before confronting internal dissent. Analysts say the episode reveals a broader struggle over the party's identity. Should Democrats prioritize governing pragmatically, even if it means short-term concessions?